High above its valley, a lone castle held against the pale sky, its towers gathering the last of the light, while the fields below lay ordered and still. To the farmer at his furrow, the merchant guiding his cart along the lane, the soldiers and rival lords who read such places with careful eyes, the fortress spoke one plain sentence. It named the man who held the ground underfoot. A place of this kind was never simply a great house of stone. It was an instrument of mastery, raised to bend both the country and its people toward a single will. Within, men slept and ate, kept their hours of prayer, and gathered to hear judgments handed down. Yet ease always ranked second. Command came first. From high windows a lord could trace the roads that crossed his land, lay up grain against famine, summon armed followers to the gate, and make his rulings feel as fixed as the rock those walls were cut from. A stronghold of this sort altered the very mood of a region. A horseman could ride off by morning, but the stone did not depart. It worked itself into the daily round of 100 lives and made authority seem permanent, stitched into the horizon. In country newly seized by force, this told hardest of all, for one fortress could turn a single victory in the field into a lasting hold on all that surrounded it. Here power was not merely sheltered but shown, ordered, and made nearly impossible to flee.
If drifting through these old stone halls helps the day come loose from your shoulders, you might let this quiet little place know with a soft tap, or leave a kind word below for the next traveler lying awake somewhere in the dark. It asks nothing of you, and it helps these slow journeys find the ones who need them. But there is nothing to do now. Only the cool stone, the low torchlight, and the long hush of the keep. The first of these strongholds were plainer things. Lords are thought to have begun with the motte and bailey, a timber tower perched on a heaped mound, an enclosed yard beneath it ringed by palisade and ditch. Earth and wood could be thrown up swiftly by many hands, and a conqueror prized speed above all. Only afterward did stone take their place, and stone came at a price that could ruin even the rich. A great fortress demanded more than ambition. It demanded silver enough to strain whole families to the breaking point. The rock had to be cut, dressed, carried, raised, and set by craftsmen whose skill was rare and dearly paid. Wood was needed for scaffolds and cranes, for roofs, for doors, for the fighting galleries that leaned out over the parapets. Smiths beat out the hinges, the nails, the clamps, the locks. Lime burners cooked the mortar. Carters dragged their loads over roads little better than mud, and the beasts at the traces had to be fed, as did the laborers, who wanted wages, tools, and shelter. The reckoning did not close once the final wall was crowned. Frost split the masonry, storms tore at the lead, the ground shifted, and war battered whatever it could reach. Rain found its way through the roofs, gates wore loose upon their pins, and a lord who had started too boldly might become a prisoner of his own scheme. Some castles, it seems, rose in slow stages because the coin ran dry in between. Their walls record not only what the masons knew, but how long a treasury could endure. Many a fortress outlasted its besiegers for a reason hidden deep beneath the courtyard. Under siege, water grew more precious than any weapon upon the parapet. Bread might be measured out for weeks, yet thirst broke a garrison within days, and so a sure supply of water became one of a stronghold's quiet lifelines. Some shafts were driven through hard rock to startling depth, set inside walls where no attacker could spoil them. Sinking one demanded patience and steady nerve. Men descended into the close dark, cut the stone by hand, and drew the loosened rubble up in baskets. And here and there the drop fell so far that hoisting a single bucket grew into a labor of its own. Even so, that labor could settle everything. A foe might fire the farms, choke the roads, and wait for hunger to do his work. Yet a castle with clean water kept time on its side. The well drew no admiration. Silent, sunken, unseen,
it was often the very reason the fortress endured. One well-sited stronghold could rule roads and rivers and a whole reach of country without ever crowding the land with men. It needed only to stand where movement narrowed to a thread. A bridge, a mountain pass, a ford, or a sharp bend in a trade route could lend a single castle a grasp far beyond the line of its walls. Travelers were forced to pass close, merchants could be squeezed for tolls, and an army had to weigh whether to storm the place, skirt it, or retreat. So the choosing of the ground mattered as heavily as the cutting of the stone. Set above a valley, a castle marked trouble while it was still far off. Set beside the water, it watched every cargo slide downstream. Even a slight garrison counted for much when the land's own shape herded folk toward its gates. Medieval power often ran in this fashion, through the narrows. The castle did not chase the world. The world was funneled to its threshold, and the roads carried silver, grain, rumor, and soldiers, so that whoever held the roots could shape the fortunes of all that lay near. The walls themselves were raised to turn dread into something the body could feel. To draw near such a place was meant to change a person from within. The ramparts rose overhead, the gate squeezed the path to a thread, and the towers glared down from angles that left no easy retreat. Before a blow fell, the building had already begun its work on the mind. Its holders wished each visitor to know himself watched, exposed, and penned. The entrance was often a schooling in helplessness, for a man might walk beneath a murder hole and the iron teeth of a portcullis, between heavy doors, under guards who saw him far better than he saw them. This was stone shaped into pressure. It made lordship feel as heavy as the masonry, and it chilled the blood of anyone bold enough to dream of assault, since whoever raised his eyes to those heights could guess well enough what might come down from them. The deepest craft of the castle builder lay not only in turning back a charge, but in working on the heart. Walls could sow hesitation. Height could school obedience. Even the strongest of these places fell more often to hunger than to the sword. Many a siege was no storm of ladders and ringing steel, but a long, patient wait. The attacker ringed the walls, severed the supply lines, and let the slow turn of the days fight on his behalf. Within, each sack of grain was counted, and salted meat, dried peas, cheese, and stored flour became the true measure of how long the garrison could hold. Horses and stock ate what little remained and could turn from comfort to burden. Sickness crept through the packed quarters, and tempers frayed as hope dwindled week by week. A fortress no army could break by storm might still give way once the larder failed. This lent siege warfare a grim, counting patience, for a commander weighed not only the thickness of walls, but the harvests, the seasons, and the spirit of the souls shut within. Sometimes the defenders bought honorable terms before the end fell whole upon them. Sometimes they held until relief came riding over the hills. Hunger made castles human. It reminded all inside that stone could shield a body yet never feed it. The most advanced of these fortresses trusted no single barrier. They were raised in layers, walls within walls, an outer rampart slowing the foe, while a taller inner wall let the defenders shoot clean over the heads of those who had taken the first. To breach the outer line was not to win. It was only to enter a killing ground, open to the sky and menaced from every side. This art reached a rare height in the castles of the eastern Mediterranean, where the great Crusader stronghold of Crac de Chevalier in the Holy Land still stands among the finest ever raised, and the idea moved west to instruct the fortress builders of later years. Each fallen wall revealed another behind it, so that victory kept slipping inward, and the attacker had to haul his engines ever deeper into hostile ground, while the garrison drew back to firmer footing without yielding the whole. Such castles turned bare space into a long chain of problems, each meant to be the last any enemy would solve. The walls held. A castle's sharpest edge was frequently not its stonework, but the earth on which it sat. Walls had their worth, yet how the country lay could weigh still heavier. And the wisest of those who built sought out spots where the natural world had already taken on some share of the guarding.
A sharp slope might wear an attacker thin before ever he came close to the entrance. A clean drop could shear away one side from all peril. Boggy ground tugged at horse and at engine together, while a flowing stream bore movement, food, and word from distant places, even while it narrowed the paths a foe was free to use. The finest of locations forced the enemy to master the ground first, before so much as one stone met his hand. For this reason, so people have held, particular strongholds appear to rise straight out of the living stone, their power resting not in masonry by itself, but within a hushed bargain struck between human craft and the harshness of the soil. Set a fortress poorly, and no measure of labor was able to hold it secure. Set it shrewdly, and a castle of modest size became fearsome. The men who built these things did far more than pile one stone atop another. They studied the country, judging incline and line of sight, water alongside wind and span, so the guarding got underway well ahead of any arrow slipping free of the cord. The stones, once they arrived, could be terrible to behold. A siege and its engines, so the old accounts run, were able to hurl rocks weightier than a full-grown man. A towering trebuchet that loomed beyond the ramparts, with its great mass of timber and cordage, must surely have frozen each soul sheltered behind them. The long beam dropped beneath the heaving pull of the weight and lashed a sling onward with a force to be dreaded. And the rock had no need to shatter a wall at a single stroke. One strike after another worked the masonry loose, ground away the garrison's courage, and gave the impression that the foe had called thunder down upon the ground. Certain stones were chosen to split walls open. Others bore grimmer tasks, since those attacking could fling decaying carcasses, vessels of flame, or scrawled threats fashioned to crush the resolve of all who pressed together within. To raise and to work an engine of this kind demanded able carpenters, makers of rope, men of war, and steady command, for these were no rough, makeshift things, but reckonings built in the field out of arithmetic, lumber, and terror. Each release spoke the same single vow. The waiting would carry on until at last something yielded. Some castles, as the years passed, swelled into towns, since folk drew together to take shelter under them. Wherever a fortress climbed, there lay safety, and wherever safety lay, commerce was able to come after, and trailing commerce arrived dwellings, workshops, marketplaces, and finally, roads laid out between them. Peril threaded its way through the medieval world, and the far-reaching shade of a stronghold offered a feeling of order. Those who worked a craft discovered purchasers among the soldiers and among the servants. Those who farmed carried in their goods for selling. Wayfarers paused where ramparts and vigilant sentries lent the road a kinder seeming. Such settlements could grow into thronging communities, each owning a nature entirely its own. The castle overhead stayed a token of command, though the town beneath held a heartbeat all of its own. That tie was not forever an easy one, since lords claimed dues, kept their rights, and now and again called for labor. Even so, the draw held tight. A castle could prove the seed from which a whole town's life sprang, and a thing born of war might mold generations of ordinary toil, dealing, wedding, dispute, and remembrance. The oldest castles in Europe were frequently wooden towers, lifted onto hills shaped by hand. Far ahead of the great stone behemoths, a great many were quick and useful, made for the most part of earth and of timber. The piled-up mound carried the name of motte, and upon its summit there rose a wooden tower, or a ring set round with stakes. Down at its base spread the bailey, an enclosed court that gave cover to livestock, supplies, workshops, and people. The pattern took hold fast because it answered a pressing need, allowing a lord to throw up a defensible strongpoint without the long span of years that dressed stone called for. Height came from the mound,
From the ditch came both soil and a wall of defense. The fence of timber could be patched or stretched wider as the need arose.
Set beside the wonders that came afterward, these works may seem plain, yet they reshaped the chart of medieval Europe, allowing those who conquered and those who ruled at home to clamp their hold onto contested ground at speed. Plenty of a stone castle started upon one of these elder grounds, and under celebrated masonry, there may yet hover the shade of a wooden fortress thrown up in a rush and honed by need. Quickness, in truth, accounted for much of the pattern's worth. In an hour of danger, a ruler could not always linger for a masterwork of dressed stone. Soil could be turned, timber brought down, and a circling ditch, a raised mound, a wall of wood, and a tower could climb swiftly wherever hands were plentiful. Haste of that kind fit conquest and the keeping of fresh ground. For once a campaign closed, a lord might fasten his grasp on lately seized land before the resistance gathered itself anew. The very act of building stood as a show of mastery, since hands from the place might be forced to refashion their own country under command. Once standing, the castle handed a small body of men a sheltered base from which to ride forth, draw in dues, and keep watch over the surrounding country. Flame and gradual rot were the things it could not withstand, yet swiftness was the thing it gave, and through the unsettled early medieval years, that mattered a great deal. A nimble fortress could sway events before a sturdier and slower one was so much as started. Windsor Castle first arose as a Norman fortress in the seasons following England's conquest. In our own day, the name calls up monarchy, ceremony, and a line unsevered, yet its beginnings rest in plain military control. With the country seized, William the Conqueror had need of solid points to keep hold of his new realm, and Windsor was placed beside the River Thames, near enough to London to press upon the doings of state. That earliest castle bore no likeness to the burnished royal house we know in the present. It went up as a single knot within a mesh of Norman power, fashioned to grip territory after a savage overturning of rule, its earthwork and its timber belonging to a world drawn tight with defiance still. Down the long span of centuries, the kings refashioned it. Wood gave way to stone. Chambers, chapels, courtyards, and halls of ceremony widened its meaning. Yet under all the splendor, the ancient logic of conquest endures. For the royal house grew up out of a fortress, and that fortress grew up out of one bare necessity, the hunger to command. So as to subdue a city already in their grasp, the builders laid down the Tower of London. The White Tower came to stand there by no accident. After the Norman triumph, it rose as a vast signal flung toward the largest and the most vital city across England, its pale mass foreign, towering, and framed on purpose to refuse all challenge of looking down. To the people of London, it uttered one plain word, that fresh masters had arrived and intended to remain. The structure performed many offices at the same moment. It shielded royal authority, housed those of high standing, held treasure in safety, and cast intimidation across the lanes. Its strength belonged to stone, while its meaning belonged to politics. The pallid stone made it stand the more keenly against the packed city. The ages that came after broadened it with walls, towers, and gates, until it carried many strata of purpose, taking its turn as prison, armory, royal lodging, and ground for ceremony. Yet the first meaning it held was blunt. There rose a fortress meant to set conquest firmly in place for all time. So as to sound the might of ancient Rome, Caernarvon Castle was shaped into its form. What Edward I laid down upon Welsh soil was no common fortress. It was raised up to drive home a claim about authority in itself. Its banded stonework and towers of many faces were intended to summon imperial memory, chief among them the walls tied to the might of Rome and of Byzantium. Here was politics wrought in masonry. The word it carried held that the king did not simply rest upon the land,
but presented himself as a ruler propped by an ancient and all but limitless right. The place held a profound meaning of its own, for relics of Rome and the legends of Wales together had molded the way the region was pictured in the mind. Caernarvon felt apart from plainer works of war. It stood bold, theatrical, and strangely conscious of its own being. Its walls did far more than ward off assault. They spoke, declaring to each onlooker that whatever rose behind them was ordered, wealthy, and set on inscribing itself across the long recollection of the ages. To any soul drawing near, the very stones gave a lesson before a word had been said. Harlech, perched on a steep crag in northern Wales, owed its staying power to far more than mere elevation. When the masons were at work, the tide reached closer than today's shoreline hints, and they made that nearness into a lifeline. A long flight of steps ran down the western face of the rock toward a fortified water gate, so that a ship could resupply the fortress straight from its deck. The worth of such a thing is plain. A force encamped on land might encircle the walls and wait, yet it could never close the sea, and so it could not starve a garrison while the coast stayed open. Grain, fresh men, and tidings from distant allies all slipped in beyond the besiegers' reach. A stronghold, this arrangement reminds us, was never simply a barrier flung up against assault. It was a device for outlasting hardship, an engine of patience. Here the rock and the water were knotted together, and the place became one bright thread in a wider net of royal power laid across a conquered country. The waters later withdrew, and the setting changed, but the founding idea kept its quiet brilliance. The castle was meant to endure by holding one road forever open to the world beyond.
Harlech belongs as well to a lineage of strongholds that marked the summit of the builder's art, the ring of concentric fortresses raised across Wales for Edward I, walls nested within walls so that any attacker who broke the outer line found himself caught beneath a taller one. Caernarvon, Conwy, Beaumaris, and Harlech survive as witnesses to that aim, defense folded upon defense. Far eastward, past the inland sea, Crac des Chevaliers swelled into one of the greatest works the Crusader world ever built. Standing on high ground in what is now Syria, it climbed by stages into a masterwork of layered protection. Taking the place in hand, the Knights Hospitaller enlarged it into a colossal stronghold, girdling it with mighty walls and towers, packing it with halls, storerooms, and a sheltered core fashioned for the long haul. From its summit, it surveyed the roads that wound through the region, while the craft of its design rendered any open attack a folly. Here, the discipline of war wedded the riches of a great religious order, and what emerged was no simple lord's house. It served as a base of strategy in a land riven by conflict, lashed to the broader contests that ran the breadth of the eastern Mediterranean. Later generations marveled at its strength, for the bulk of its medieval shape endured into ages long after. The fortress seems almost hewn from the very logic of defense. Its weighty masonry, its guarded approaches, its hidden inner keep, all renowned among scholars of fortification. The place reveals what the craft could reach when wealth, hard-won experience, the shape of the land, and ceaseless peril gathered in one remarkable spot. High above the River Seine, Chateau Gaillard sprang up with a speed that left onlookers amazed, the handiwork of Richard the Lionheart. On a commanding bluff, the king called for a fortress to defy the King of France and to guard the road into Normandy, and the labor surged ahead with rare haste. Workers, stone, and coin were all pressed toward a single purpose. Richard understood a truth few spoke aloud, that a castle could serve as a weapon long before a single blow landed, since its mere existence reshaped what a foe would risk attempting. The stronghold bore a bold design, with thick walls, a daunting inner core, and ingenious contrivances meant to defeat the engines and the patience of a siege. Its name has long held a ring of audacity, fitting enough, for this was no slow seat ripened over the unhurried generations of a household.
It was a swift proclamation raised by a monarch who understood warfare from the inside. And yet, once Richard had died, even this fearsome place fell at the last. That defeat makes it the more gripping, not the less, for it shows that genius hewn into masonry rested even so on politics, on timing, and on the choices of flawed men. Dover loomed over the English coast like a warning cut in stone for any who might cross the water. Rising near the shortest passage between the island and the European mainland, it drew an importance few sites could rival. Whoever commanded that height held a vigil over one among the realm's most delicate approaches. Begun in the reign of Henry II, the great tower fixed a strong royal heart inside a wider ring of defenses, and around it, earthworks and walls grew into a fortress built to withstand a resolute attack. This was no common shore to be guarded. It marked the doorway through which soldiers, couriers, traders, and peril alike might come ashore. Its long history bears that weight, for the place held its military worth far past the medieval centuries, since geography did not cease to count merely because armor yielded to gunpowder. Dover's deepest fascination lies in that unbroken vigilance. The castle answers, in medieval terms, a question that never ages. How does one defend an island where the sea runs thinnest? The reply was to build where no sail could slip by unseen. Edinburgh Castle rises from a crag of volcanic rock older than any human recollection. The fortress rests on Castle Rock, the worn remnant of fires long since cooled, carved across unfathomable ages by grinding ice and patient weather. Before any king, soldier, or mason came near, the earth had already shaped the place into a stronghold. Sheer sides gave shelter without a single block being lifted, while the rock's crown granted clear mastery over all the land below. That is why men valued the spot so dearly. Its strength was not conjured by them out of empty air. What they did was perceive a fastness the land had already shaped, then set their walls over the toil of the deep past. Edinburgh's chronicle teems with royal lodging, stored arms, siege, ceremony, and the slow gathering of a nation's memory. Yet the ground beneath it all outdates any crown that ever rested there. That contrast lends the castle its uncanny force. A human story sits upon a story of stone, almost beyond the reach of thought. The ambition of the medieval age set high upon ancient ages, the rock making defense possible, and the centuries collecting there because the landscape itself drew power to stay. Bodiam wears the look of a romance, yet it was raised for war in earnest. Its likeness, doubled in the calm water of its moat, can seem a fairy tale made solid, though the broad pool was never chosen for beauty alone. It arose in the later medieval years in southeastern England, in a season of dread toward France, when the coastal country feared raids and a rising lord still felt driven to show his standing. The wide water set distance between the castle and the world, and herded every visitor toward the few guarded points of entry. Towers and battlements lent the place a full martial outline, though historians still dispute how ready for real battle it ever was. That very tension is what makes Bodiam so absorbing, poised between picture and purpose. It was a fortress, certainly, but also a declaration of rank by a man who wished his authority to seem old, secure, and grand. Its walls were defense and theater together. Bodiam shows that a castle could shield the body, delight the eye, and polish a reputation in one breath of stone. Even a castle's stairways were conceived as weapons. Within many a tower, the spiral steps coiled upward in a clockwise turn, a scheme that gave the right-handed defender room to swing while jamming the attacker against the central column. A man on the higher ground could bring his sword arm into the open beside the outer wall, while the climber below found his own right side cramped and choked by stone. Each step grew clumsier and more dangerous. He already battled the pull of gravity, the treachery of his footing, the darkness, and his own fear, and now the building itself pressed against his body. The reasoning was plain and merciless. A narrow stair likewise barred any crowd from rushing up as one, so the defenders met their enemies one by one. Not every flight kept this rule, and no fight ever played out exactly as the builder dreamed, yet the principle lays bare a deeper truth. Those who raised castles thought in single instants, picturing the gasping climb, the shield lifted a heartbeat too late, the lethal advantage tucked into a turn of stone. The deadliest ground in many a castle was not the outer wall at all, but the shadowed corridor lying immediately within the gateway. Those who battered away into that cramped space might suddenly see the ceiling above them riddled with openings, the murder holes, and through them the defenders could drop stones, send arrows down, pour scalding water, tip out sand, or loose whatever the moment demanded. The name is grim, but the use was wholly practical, turning a doorway into a place of slaughter where boldness soured at once into helplessness. A man trapped below could not readily climb, flee, or guard himself on every side, and the corridor might be sealed at both ends, penning the intruders within while the defenders toiled in safety overhead. This was the builder's mind at its most calculating, for the entrance had to welcome friends in the quiet of ordinary days, yet punish enemies in the hour of assault. Within that twofold task rested the brilliance of the gatehouse of the medieval age, door and snare in one, often paired with a heavy portcullis that could crash down to lock a man inside the killing ground. The arrow loop carried a kindred cunning, letting the archer strike while standing almost wholly shielded, a slit that from without looked no more than a thin wound cut into the stone. Seen from the inside, an arrow loop frequently broadened toward the rear into a splayed cavity, a place where a bowman might set his feet in comfort and turn his aim as the string came back. Therein lay its quiet cunning. The man within enjoyed a roomy alcove for his labor, whereas the figure beyond met scarcely more than a thin streak of shadow to sight upon. Some of these gaps the masons flared so the arc of shooting spread wider, and others they crossed so the shafts might travel down more than one line together. None of them were chance fissures in the masonry. Rather, they stood as careful posts of seeing and of hurt. While bow and crossbow ruled the field, slots of that sort lent any wall an eerie life of its own. A surface of lifeless stone might, with no warning given, throw iron out from openings that looked too paltry to conceal a body. They permitted a watcher to read the ground while keeping himself chiefly unseen, and thus the stronghold wore the aspect of some beast studded with 100 slender eyes, every notch warning each newcomer that the stone kept its watch, patient and prepared. A portcullis was able to drop and lock a gateway inside a handful of heartbeats. That ponderous web of timber or iron-bound oak hung in waiting above, within slots cut downward along the entry tunnel, and the moment its grip was released, it plunged with a quickness that took the breath. Its spiked underside struck the paving with a blow that must have rolled out through the masonry like a verdict spoken aloud. By its means, those sheltered behind could close a gap on the instant, even after the outermost doors had cracked apart or lay beneath some hammering siege. The garrison was free to pen raiders within the corridor, cleave a charging column in two, or win a breath for fresh measures to stir. To draw the grating upward once more demanded cordage and pulley and the dragging effort of a windlass, and yet such toil repaid the doing, since a gateway always remained the tender spot in every wall. It was bound to open for the simple commerce of daily living, then to stand fast through the harshest hour a siege could bring. The portcullis settled that riddle without any mercy at all. Now a thoroughfare, now a wall grown teeth. A passage through a gate was many times watched from overhead by a murder hole, an opening cut in the vaulting through which the defenders might let fall their reply upon whatever enemy was caught beneath. As for drawbridges, these proved rarer than the old stories would have us believe. The fond picture of a deck rising above a brimming moat carries genuine weight, and yet it was never anything like the ordinary case. A great many strongholds got by with bridges set firm, with raised causeways, with plain wooden walkways, or with approaches angled on purpose to trouble a horseman. A deck that moved asked for skill in the making and care in the keeping, what with its chains and counterweights, and it answered only at a site where the apparatus paid for itself. Guarding it was needful as well, for a jammed drawbridge might shut the defenders in as cleanly as it shut out any foe. At one place the ditch went dry, at another the route inward rested upon towers and barred turnings instead of any arm that rose. The contrast deserves a pause, since it lays bare how unlike each other these castles really stood. Every one of them replied to its own terrain, its own coffers, its own tally of enemies. A bridge that lifted could indeed awe, and it graced no small number of fortified grounds. Yet the masons who built such things were level-headed, taking up the device whenever the scheme called for it, and never on account of what the legends preferred. A trench had no need to stand full of water to perform its work, for beyond all else, it stripped an attack of its momentum. A moat made no decorative ribbon looped about a keep. In its essence, it was a hindrance. Even a trench gone dry would serve if it sent the attackers down to scramble, across bare footing, and back upward again under a downpour of arrows. Still water multiplied the difficulty, all the more so where it sat foul and clotted. Whichever kind it was, the purpose was to break apart the onrush. Siege engines could not roll over a chasm, ladders discovered no faithful footing, and miners had a greater stretch to tunnel before their tools found the stone. The fiercest charge, too, lost its heat once the very earth set itself against the men. A number of ditches were dug to grant the rampart a counterfeit loftiness in the eyes of those below. A moat told of cutting off besides, holding the keep aloof from common land as though lordship had torn itself loose of the workaday world. In this spot and that, the trench cradled no water but a bristling crop of sharpened stakes. Where the mind summoned a moat, it imagined black depths, and yet a dry defense could threaten every bit as sharply. Within certain works, the ditch had been planted with pointed timbers, the kind that rendered any passage across it both slow and full of danger. Snares of that make were intended to wreck men and to scatter their ranks. Whoever threaded among them had no power to make haste. A horse might shy or fling its rider. A band loaded down with shields and ladders found itself made to stop in the one place where stopping exacted the dearest price. There was no call for the stakes to ruin every man, merely to delay enough of their number while those on the heights brought the matter to its close. Here stands an abiding truth of the castle at war. An obstacle prevailed by thieving seconds, unstitching order, and driving the foe onto awkward footing. A pointed post buried in a ditch was a lowly thing set against a tower, and still it dropped into the same machinery of defense. The gateway endured as the most brittle joint of any castle, and for that reason the one most warily guarded. A wall might stretch thick and unbroken, but a fastness was obliged nonetheless to take its breath through some doorway, and that very requirement bred a peril all its own. There the everyday current of life moved through, and there as well ran the seam an enemy hungered most to split open. The reply of the builders was to gather the entrance into one layer over another. A road might bend so that an attacker stood exposed. Towers might press close upon the way in. Doors might be bound about with iron. Gratings, bars, chambers set within, and holes opening overhead might pile one hazard atop the next. The aim was not simply to forbid passage, but to render each stride toward it costly. Thus gateways grew, again and again, into the most sumptuous work the whole castle could claim, carrying a freight of meaning besides, for the great and the honored arrived along that very route, and the masonry had to astonish quite as much as it sheltered. The gate, then, stood as a paradox, the appointed weakness of the stronghold, and by that same fact a masterwork of defense. A sturdy gatehouse was a thing reaching well beyond a doorway beneath a roof. It might contain its chambers, its stations for the watch, its stores, its rooms set above, and tier after tier of barriers. Were a foe to break through, the garrison could carry on the fight from inside the very stonework. Furnished with doors of its own, with corridors and stairways, with its loops and its sheltered platforms, the gatehouse came near to being a fortress entire, a snug keep set down in the most laid-bare quarter of the whole site. Through the years of calm, it governed all who entered and departed. In time of war, it turned into a tangled stronghold of defense. Some among them ranked grand enough to quarter an officer of standing, or to lay out cozy rooms over the archway, fitted out with a garderobe, that plain privy worked into the sheer mass of the masonry. Such a pairing reveals a great deal. The builders of the Middle Ages rarely split function away from message. A single structure could measure the traveler, billet the guard, cow the enemy, and herald the Lord, all in one breath. Whoever passed below was not merely entering a castle, but moving through a smaller fortress shaped to weigh him before all else. The jagged crown that ran along the parapet stood as nothing so idle as ornament. Its upstanding blocks afforded a man his cover, while the dips between them let him gaze outward or send a stone or an arrow upon its course. This alternation of whole stone and open gap drew a fighting brink along the lip of the wall, the place where the watch could read the country, sound the warning, and answer whenever a thing began to move. Beneath an assault, a soldier might hunch behind the merlin, then lift himself a breath to loose or to throw before he dropped once more. The idea has the look of simplicity, and therein lies a part of its grace, for it turned the wall walk into a guarded ledge in place of a plain high path. That crenellated profile recast the very outline of the castle, its broken horizon proclaiming readiness even when not a soul stood upon it. So loud did that proclamation swell that battlements stole their way in later years onto halls of slender, warlike purpose. The shape on its own had grown to murmur of power, and what set out as cover stiffened into a token of medieval rule. There came a point in the long quarrel between builder and besieger when the rampart itself learned to lean out and gaze down. Masons set a band of stone jutting from the wall's crest, and into the underside of that overhang they cut openings, slots placed directly over the foot of the masonry. Through them, those above could let fall stones or pour something scalding upon anyone pressed against the wall below. Such projecting galleries served best where peril gathered thickest, over the gate, around the towers, along the frailer spans of the curtain. The craft was demanding, since the overhang had to bear its own great mass while still keeping those gaps clear for grim work. Carried to its fullest, the device gave a stronghold a downward reach, so that a foe who had weathered arrows from the wall's face might abruptly be struck from overhead. In such things, one reads how fortification ripened through hard trial rather than fancy. Those who raised the walls noted where attackers massed, then shaped the stone to cover exactly those spots. The gallery was no ornament, but a stone reply to a question put in blood and dread. What remains to be done once the enemy stands at the wall's very base? The answer waited above his head. Another lesson came through the form of the towers. Builders grew to prefer curved sides over square, for a rounded shape was far harder to topple. Square towers gave corners, and at the corners ruin took root. An angle could be singled out, hammered, prized apart, or mined with bleak certainty, since stone there carried strain poorly and showed a plain seam to work. A rounded tower spread force across its whole face and left those tunneling beneath it almost no true edge to seize. The curve aided the watch too, for from a rounded wall defenders could see and loose across a broader stretch of ground. When the heavy stones hurled by an engine met that bending surface, the form might glance the blow aside or thin the place where it struck. Roundness was no shield against all ruin, yet it met the known dangers with greater sense, and it altered a castle's very aspect, lending a flowing, finished look that the older square forms had lacked. In that slow turn toward the curve lies the endless exchange of attack and defense. Whenever siegecraft grew keener, builders studied and replied. Whenever builders replied, attackers found another road. The castle's art never rested. It was a dialogue held in stone, formed by danger and by memory. To see why the curve prevailed, dwell on the corner's failings. The first stone castles relied on square and rectangular towers, partly because such shapes were simple to mark out and simple to build. But those clean angles turned into a quiet weakness. A corner took strain badly and offered a besieger a tidy target for his mining and his battering. Should a foe dig beneath the angle and fire the timber props bracing his tunnel, that stretch of tower might fall and burst apart to terrible effect. Here one recalls the old art of sapping, the cutting of a passage under the foundation, its wooden supports later burned so that the earth and wall above came crashing into the void. Defenders understood the threat, yet a castle already raised could not easily be granted new bones. Square towers held their merits. They yielded serviceable square rooms, rose by familiar means, and joined neatly to the curtain. Their flaw lay only in how tidily they surrendered their weak edges to a patient foe. No castle was a flawless engine. Each was built within the knowledge and means of its own hour. A tower that seemed unconquerable in one century might betray its weakness in the next, since how strongholds rose and held remains, in part, a record of old certainties undone by fresh method. Deeper within stood the keep, often the last ground on which a garrison made its stand. At the core of many a castle rose a tower meant to outlast every other defense and to hold even once the outer works had fallen. Within lay the chambers that mattered, the stores, the treasure, and the people whose lives or rank could not be risked. Its walls ran thick and its doors were few, so that it could not be taken in haste. When all else failed, defenders could draw back into it and fight on from firmer footing. Yet the keep was never only a refuge. It was lordship made plain. Rising above the whole site, it proclaimed who ruled, both to those within and to any who looked up from without. Some keeps were bare and soldierly. Others held hearths, chapels, painted rooms, and halls fit to receive a guest. Their meaning leaned alike on strength and on presence. If the outer works formed a shell, then this keep stood as the hard kernel within, bearing the silent pledge that resistance need not yet end. Among these stones, a chapel might count for as much as the mightiest tower. Faith ran through every thread of medieval life, so a house given over to worship within a fortress came as no afterthought. A sacred middle point was what the chapel offered the household, a place where lord and lady, soldier and servant and guest might attend the Mass, mark the holy days, pray before peril, or seek meaning in the wake of grief. Its presence spoke of legitimacy, declaring that a castle was not only a seat of force, but one claiming its place within a moral and heavenly order. A few chapels stayed small and bare, others glowed with frescoed walls, carven stone, vessels of great worth, and light set with care. In a world where sword and prayer so often stood together, the chapel bore a weight of feeling all its own. It could quiet dread before a siege, bless grave decisions, and remind each soul that earthly power was held to answer, in the end, to a higher one. The strongest tower guarded the body. The chapel cared for that household's soul, and for the tale it told about itself. Then came the great hall, where power was acted out before all who stood within. The living heart of the castle was most often a broad, shared chamber for meals and councils, ceremonies and judgments together. Here rank grew visible. The lord or lady held the seat of highest honor, often upon a raised dais, while the rest were ranged by their station, marked by where they sat, what they wore, and how they were served. A great hall could be loud and crowded, servants threading between the boards while retainers marked each gesture. Here, too, hospitality turned into a kind of politics, for to feed a multitude displayed one's wealth, to welcome a guest performed one's confidence, and to settle a quarrel where witnesses looked on made private authority a public fact. The building lent itself to this theater, with its high roof, its hangings, its fire, and its proud detail. A castle might find defense in its walls, yet its social order found defense in the hall, the one place where power refused to hide. Out in the open it took its seat, and saw to it that no one present could miss it. Behind the gracious rooms lay a fiercer world of heat, toil, and smoke. The kitchens of a large castle had to feed a household that might swell without warning during a visit, a celebration, or an hour of danger, sometimes hundreds of mouths at once. A feast was set in motion long before any dish reached the board. Meat was butchered, bread baked, fish cleaned, and spices, grain, ale, and fuel stored and reckoned with care. In crisis, these same kitchens turned to survival, dealing out rationed meals to guards and servants, to those who had fled within the walls, and to the noble folk above. The labor was skilled and ceaseless, for cooks grasped timing, the keeping of food, and the mastery of fire. And they knew, too, the expectations of rank, since a lord's table received elaborate fare, while workers ate plainly from the same store. The kitchen shows the castle as a living thing, whose walls might awe a stranger, but whose daily strength rested on those who rose before dawn and sweated over the flames to keep the house fed. The smoke of all those hearths often found its way out through nothing grander than a gap in the roof. Before the chimney grew common across much of castle life, smoke was a constant companion. In older halls, a fire might burn upon a central hearth beneath a louvre, an opening cut above it. From the blaze came both warmth and light. Yet its smoke did not always depart as bidden. It rose and gathered under the rafters, and now and then settled into eyes and cloth and tapestry. Whether the air cleared at all hung on the wind, the shape of the building, and the patience of those who breathed within. This made a medieval hall far removed from the spotless rooms of later imagining. Fire was needful, yet a grubby gift, blackening surfaces, seasoning the air, reminding all that comfort was bought with some discomfort. In time, the fireplace and chimney brought finer control, and with them, private heated rooms and cleaner walls. Even so, the older way tells something vivid, for a castle was never a silent jewel of stone. It breathed its smoke, smelled of its fuel, and warmed itself by means at once a mercy and a trial. Light itself was no certainty within these walls, for glass set into a window counted as a luxury in many a medieval castle. In a great many times and places, window glass was dear, fragile, and a token of wealth, and openings were more often closed with shutters, with oil-steeped cloth, with panels of thin horn, or with screens of plain wood, into shaded, drafty rooms whose mood shifted with the turning year. Glass, on the rare occasions it appeared, came as a quiet boast. It coaxed daylight inside while fending off the harshest weather, and in the richest halls it might be tinted or arranged in patterns purely to please the eye. A glazed opening announced means, taste, and a bond with skilled hands. A gentle paradox sits at the core of these places, and it is among the pleasures of studying them. A building bristling with grim defensive masonry might also shelter a fragile sheet of light. No fortress was merely a machine for outlasting an assault. It was also, by slow degrees, somewhere the privileged learned to live more softly and to be admired for it. A single small pane could remake a chamber, blurring the hard seam between shelter and sun, proving that comfort, too, could be reckoned in how much brightness one commanded. Against the chill of naked walls, woven cloth did double duty, warming as readily as it adorned. A grand room of bare stone could still feel raw, the cold seeming to leak from the masonry itself. Hangings met that complaint,
Heavy textiles carried color into a space, marked the rank of those who lived there, and softened the draft breathing off the walls. They muffled echoes as well, gathering a room inward so it felt snugger, more held. The scenes worked into the weave were seldom chosen at random. A noble house might favor the hunt, an old legend, a moment of faith, or some emblem tied to its name and lineage. Because such cloth could be rolled and carried, it traveled with great households from one residence to the next, riches a family could pack and move. Raising hangings on a wall turned plain stone, almost at once, into a stage for power and refinement. Their usefulness counted every bit as much as their splendor. When winter pressed in, a tapestry was far more than ornament. It was one of the ways people simply endured the building that housed them. A room draped in cloth recalls that medieval ease was usually assembled piece by piece, through objects that worked at once on body and imagination. Underfoot, the picture grew earthier. Floors were not the smooth, swept expanses a modern mind might expect. Many were strewn with rushes, straw, sweet herbs, or other gathered plant matter, laid to soak up spills and soften a footstep. A fresh layer could carry a pleasant scent, more so when fragrant herbs were mixed through it. In time, though, the same covering trapped crumbs, grease, tracked in mud, fleas, and whatever else dropped during a crowded meal. A well-run house renewed or cleaned it, yet how often turned on wealth, season, and plain discipline. It is a small thing that tugs the castle down out of legend and back into ordinary life. A great hall might blaze at a feast while the floor beneath the revelers told a humbler truth. Dogs nosed after fallen scraps, servants swept once the eating ended, guests trailed in dirt from the yard at every step. The floor was one more front in the household's unending campaign against squalor. These were imposing places, never sterile ones, busy, crowded, sensory worlds where polish and ceremony lived beside smell, clutter, and ceaseless labor. As the centuries softened castle life, the idea of a room of one's own took root. In the earlier medieval world, much elite living was shared and open. People dined, slept, worked, and conferred together in common rooms, with little of what we would call privacy. Gradually, the higher households began to crave separation. A private chamber let a lord or lady step back from the press of the hall, see to personal matters, receive a chosen few, and rest in greater ease. The change ran deeper than fashion, marking a shift in the very handling of power. Who could pass through which door became a question of standing. To be welcomed into a closed room was a mark of favor. To be left in the hall was to be held at arm's length. Stone itself began sorting people into layers, leading inward from the open and public toward rooms ever more guarded. Such chambers might hold finer furnishings, a hearth of their own, painted walls, and costly cloth, helping certain fortresses turn from blunt strongholds into polished homes. The spread of the private room reveals the human grain inside even the harshest design. In buildings raised to control and repel, people still longed for warmth, retreat, quiet talk, and a door that would shut. Sanitation, by contrast, stayed bracingly plain. Tucked into the thickness of a wall, the garderobe amounted to a little latrine set straight within the masonry, sometimes jutting beyond it. Refuse dropped through a shaft to a pit below, slid along the building's outer face, or fell into water, according to the design. It served those above well enough, yet offered little joy to anyone living beneath. Certain shafts had to be scoured by hand, a duty ranking among the grimmest a castle could offer. The word itself, it is said, could also name a place for keeping clothes, perhaps because the lingering smell was thought to drive off moths and vermin. Whatever the truth of the name, the chamber recalls that real bodies lived behind those walls. Tall towers needed somewhere for water to run. The high-born households required latrines too, and the refuse had to end up somewhere. It is here that the storybook glamour of fortress living collides with the plain engineering of getting through the day. for even the proudest keep had to answer the oldest, most stubborn human need. Some of a castle's most vital work, in fact, ran straight down out of sight. A well sunk inside the walls might reach far into the rock, a depth that can seem scarcely believable. In certain strongholds, the shaft drove deeper into the ground than the highest tower climbed into the sky. No luxury attached to that buried vertical realm, for water set the limit on how long a place could hold out. Cutting such a shaft cost enormous effort. Laborers hacked downward in cramped, airless dark, lifted the loosened spoil up and out, and fought to keep the walls from giving way. The deeper they pressed, the blacker and more perilous the work grew. When the digging was done at last, that guarded lifeline was often shut away so no enemy could foul or reach it. Drawing the water up could still be slow toil, especially where the bucket had a long climb. Yet every cupful repaid the digging. We tend to picture a castle's drama overhead, in walls and battlements and banners, but now and then, its single most important feature lay quietly beneath every foot in the place. A deep well was building turned the other way, a tower driven down into the earth. Not every doorway was made to overawe a visitor. A postern was a modest gate, usually set apart from the great approach and kept for quiet, controlled comings and goings. Through it a messenger might steal away, a scout return, or the garrison burst out in a sudden sally while every eye watched the main entrance. In the grip of a siege, so small a door could hold a great deal of hope. A lone rider passing out under cover of dark might carry news, beg for relief, or bear the terms of a parley. But the same opening cut both ways. If found out or sold to the enemy, the secret way could turn into a deadly flaw, which kept posterns closely watched and, where possible, cunningly hidden. They show a castle was never a sealed box. It needed concealment, suppleness, and a thread of contact with the wider world. For a fortress shut off entirely had a weakness all its own. The little gate teaches a lesson. Survival did not always hang on towering walls. Sometimes it hung instead on a single cramped corridor, on one sentry who could be trusted, and on one figure slipping by unseen. The gravest threat of all often came from below, where attackers dug beneath the walls to bring them down. Sapping and mining ranked among the most dreaded methods of siege precisely because the stone could not see it coming. Engineers and diggers burrowed toward where a tower or stretch of wall met its foundation, frequently laboring in darkness while defenders strained to sense them. As the earth came out, the tunnel was shored with timber props. Once enough ground had been hollowed away. The attackers set the wooden supports alight. As they burned through, the tunnel failed, and the mass of stone overhead might crack, lurch, sink, or fall altogether. It was murderous work on every side. Tunnels collapsed. Defenders sank countermines to meet the diggers underground. Smoke, heat, and terror could fill those buried passages. The method proves a castle could be assailed in ways the eye never registered. A wall that seemed unbreakable from without might be hollowed in silence underneath. Siege warfare amounted to far more than brute strength flung against stone. It demanded patience and geometry, along with the quiet, hidden brutality of soil being spirited away. And so the defenders learned to listen to the ground itself. When a siege tightened, the most precious warning of all could arrive as a noise so faint it nearly escaped hearing. Those who feared mining would press resonant things against the ground, whether bowls or drums or any vessel that rang, to pick up the smallest tremor. They listened, hour upon hour, for the scrape, the tap, and the dull stirring of tools at work somewhere beneath the floor. Once the garrison sensed where the diggers toiled, they could sink a shaft of their own and feel their way toward the foe beneath the surface. And whatever came of such encounters was grimmer than any plain fight. Two bands might break through a partition of packed soil into a single dark hollow, choking,
starved of air, swinging blades down in a pit never shaped to hold men wearing armor. Some would flood the workings to drown the enemy. Others pumped foul smoke below. And often, neither party knew the other lay close, with nothing but a thin barrier of earth between them. Here the familiar form of a siege was overturned. Honor did not always rest upon the ramparts and their bright banners. At times it lay in the buried galleries, where the keenest ear outlasted the others, and war found its stage in the ground itself. When fortresses were built of timber, fire achieved what no climbing band ever managed. Earth and wood rose with striking speed, yet that same swiftness left them defenseless against burning. A palisade of stakes, a lifted tower, a barred gate could throw off arrows and a sudden rush, but heat rewrote every rule. This was the hard lesson stamped into the earliest strongholds, the motte and bailey, where a timber tower stood on a piled mound above a fenced yard, quick to raise and quick to lose. Burning arrows by themselves did not always decide things, least of all where the wood was soaked by rain. But a patient besieger could heap faggots, pitch, and brushwood until the very air grew lethal. Once a fire caught, far more than the timber stood in danger. Smoke stole sight from the defenders. Terror moved through them, and stored grain, roofing, walkways, and ladders all waited to nourish the flames, so a place of real strength could be rendered unlivable in startlingly little time. The crews replied with soaked hides, heaped earth, and ceaseless mending, yet wood never shed its danger. This is one reason the oldest castles seldom stayed as first raised. A timber keep might rule the land at one dawn and lie in ashes by the following. The ease with which wood burned did much to spread stone across the country. Swapping timber for masonry was never merely a reach for splendor. It was a reach for endurance. Stone stood against fire as wood never managed, outlived the men who set it, and lent a lord's authority the air of something fixed and permanent. Quarrying, hauling, and laying such walls swallowed vast resources, so the choice by itself proclaimed both riches and resolve. Stone could still be cracked, undermined, or pounded, yet it would not melt away in a sheet of flame. Forcing a breach in it called for heavier engines, longer patience, and a deeper purse. Masonry could bear loftier towers, sturdier chambers, and gatehouses of finer craft, and behind such an entrance a passage could guard itself with a portcullis that dropped like iron fangs, and an opening overhead, through which the watchful rained destruction on any soul trapped below. Even so, stone bore its own burdens, being chill, dear, and slow to erect. Builders did not adopt it to delight the eye, but because warfare had taught them clearly what fire devours. Within a thick wall, lime mortar might require years to set in truth, for a medieval wall's firmness rested in more than the stones one could see. Lodged among them was mortar, keeping a slow clock of its own. Lime arose from burning limestone, then quenching it with water and joining it to aggregate as a paste. Once placed, it stiffened by drawing carbon dioxide out of the air, its outer skin curing early while the heart remained soft far longer. In the thickest masonry, that ripening could carry on long after the masons had gathered their tools and gone, so a castle might look complete while, deep within its bonding, it was still quietly becoming itself. The men who reared these walls grasped the nature of their materials through long practice, and not through any chemistry. Every generation of masons handing the craft along to the next. Such unhurried setting grants the walls a hidden life. They were never simply stacked and done. They cured, settled, and aged like vast, slow bodies of stone. Builders pored over slopes and marshes, cliffs and the bending of rivers, for deciding where a castle would rise was an act of judgment before it ever became an act of building. The ground had to be read the way a commander reads a battlefield. A slope would blunt an assault, a marsh would mire the weightiest engines, a cliff could spare a whole side its wall, and a river's curve could govern travel and supply. None of this was mere scenery. It was the fortress as surely as the stone. Sound ground saved coin, spared men, and honed every defense, while poor ground could make even dear walls a dead weight. Plain necessities mattered as well, for a castle wanted water, a route to materials, roads fit to bear carts, and space enough for living. The finest sites held danger and use in balance, since a faultless cliff with no means to feed it was simply a snare. So a castle began in judgment. The land understood long before a single block was raised. A stony summit could outmatch one more circle of wall. Where a fortress stood upon high, hard ground, the earth itself kept much of the guard. A man was forced to labor up the slope before he could strike, and that climb sapped breath, order, and nerve. Siege engines stuck fast, burrowing beneath the footings turned far harder where the base was solid rock, and stones flung from below shed much of their force. The garrison, for its part, held both sight and gravity, marking movement from afar and leaving any approach laid open to the eye. This is why so many castles seem to grow from the rock beneath, their builders pursuing not spectacle, but the strength the ground supplied at no cost. The summit set the enemy against the earth, then against the wall, then, at the last, against the people above. Some castles held bridges because bridges held the keys to movement and to money. A crossing in those years was a precious narrows where all travel drew down to one thread. Carts and beasts, pilgrims and merchants, couriers and soldiers each wanted a passage they could rely on, and a castle set beside such a road could watch every crossing and gain by it. Tolls could be levied, goods examined, a doubtful traveler held back. In troubled seasons, keeping one bridge might settle whether an army drove forward or wasted hard days seeking another ford. So bridges bore weight in the workings of power, knitting communities together yet also unlatching a door to authority. A lord who held the castle beside the bridge could turn the land's bare shape into rents, and the village near it might swell, for folk collect where roads come to water. Castles were never only about turning back an attack, they were about ruling the flow, and whoever held the crossing could bend trade, tidings, and the very speed of events across a broad land. Upon a frontier, a castle could become a wound that bled for ages, set where laws, tongues, loyalties, and appetites all rubbed together. These were no plain local keeps, they were proclamations of who claimed the soil. When powers wrangled over a region, the castles within it became all at once prizes, threats, and emblems, and a fresh master could overturn the taxes, the justice, the summons to arms, and the daily dread of the people nearby. Some border castles were stormed, repaired, strengthened, and stormed once more across whole lifetimes. Others passed hands quietly as tokens in a treaty or a marriage compact. For those living in their shadow, history was a burden that keeps coming back rather than a single event, and a child might be raised on the story of one siege, only to behold another. Borders were rarely the clean lines inked on parchment, but broad belts of doubt, and a castle set within them could feel like a clenched fist, pressing one side's claim against everything the other still recalled. In parts of medieval England, a lord could not simply throw up battlements at his pleasure. To do so might call for the crown's consent, a grant called a license to crenellate. On its face it touched building, yet beneath it flowed the deeper tide of power. Walls and parapets whispered of strength, and no king cared to see every grasping lord turn his hall into a private menace. By holding the gift of leave within his own grasp, the monarch kept his fingers upon both the show and the substance of defense. Within this custom lay a quiet tethering of masonry to a king's will, since to raise walls became a kind of dialogue with the throne. A lord holding his license could display it without shame, proof that the sovereign regarded him kindly. The crown profited as well, for it might honor a loyal man while surrendering neither coin nor land. Not every sanctioned house stood as a true stronghold, and now and then a place lacking any grant still wore the marks of war along its roof. The scheme was never tidy. Still, the notion lingers, for it shows that battlements meant more than carved rock.
They belonged to a tongue of rank, of leave granted, of ambition kept within limits. Leave to crenellate could proclaim standing as plainly as it proclaimed safety. Certain nobles prized the right to top a wall with notches almost above the notches themselves. Such a grant murmured to every neighbor that the king had marked the family out. It let a humble seat assume a fortress's face even where real strength ran thin. In an age forever weighing degrees of consequence, the outward surface of a thing mattered. A jagged crest of stone, parapets, and towers could raise a plain dwelling into a standing assertion of worth. Walls spoke for their master before he opened his mouth. Anyone approaching the gate understood at once that here stood no ordinary manor, but the seat of one with means, with connections, and with grace enough from above to imitate the forms of war. None of it left the defenses empty. Some did honest service. Yet the social signal could matter as much as any battlefield use. Architecture itself became a gauge of name and worth, and a grant turned bare stone into prestige, which in turn shaped marriage, alliance, obedience near at hand, and how a household imagined its seat in the long line of its kin. Castle building was a slow drama carved into rock, and every great fortress flung its message outward. To rivals it told of riches. To those tilling the land it told of power newly settled close by. To friends it pledged that their cause now rested on something solid. The play opened well before the final stone settled. Laborers gathered, carts rolled the tracks, quarries cracked open, and a whole countryside bent to one man's order. Folk watched a lord's hopes climb into view season by season. From such beginnings came the early motte and bailey, a timber tower perched on a heaped mound of earth with a fenced yard below, a shape plain, yet already declaring who ruled. When the work ended, the spectacle carried on. Towers framed ceremony. Gates judged who passed and who did not. The great hall ordered the meeting of master and guest. Even ornament could urge a claim, through painted arms, through stone hauled from afar, through forms picked with deliberate care. This was theater needing no curtain, its audience all who dwelt beneath its long shadow. A castle might soothe or threaten, dazzle or provoke by the eye that fell on it. So, raising one was never an idle act. Stone came dear, slow to lay, and plain for all to see. To build a fortress was to declare a vision of how things stood and insist that the rest of the world bow before it. Noble houses turned their walls into a record of who they were and what they hoped to become. A household's memory rendered firm in stone. Through coats of arms, carved devices, painted shields, and rooms arranged with intent, a tale of descent was laid down for all to read. Some lines leaned on ancient roots. Others used the very labor of building to dress new power and borrowed dignity. A tower might bear a forebear's name. A chapel might shelter tombs binding the living to their honored dead. Visitors beheld not riches alone, but a claim of unbroken succession. This counted greatly, for noble standing rested on being known, a house needing to seem worthy, well settled, and bound to the proper circles. And the same stones could point ahead. A fresh wing, a prouder gate, a grander hall hinted at faith in days not yet arrived. So a castle looked at once backward and forward, keeping the family's past while quietly arguing the tale deserved to widen. War around such walls tended to be slower, more measured than battle fought in the open. In the common picture, a siege of the Middle Ages is nothing but clamor and sudden blood, yet many were campaigns of patient reckoning. Commanders weighed stores, the turning seasons, the state of the roads, the spirit of their men, and the chance some relieving host might crest the hills. Attackers might throw up camps, cut trenches, raise engines, screen their supply lines, and bide their time until weakness first showed.
Within the walls, the defenders counted supplies, mended damage, held discipline, and searched the distance for a signal. One rash rush could spend lives and gain nothing. Patience served better. Talk might pass between the sides as the siege wore on, each measuring what it could bear to lose. Weather could overturn it all. Rain fouled the camps, winter wore down the beasts, harvest pressed on both food and hands.
The castle stood at the heart of a far wider struggle reaching into villages and fields, messengers and distant politics. Such a tale holds more than any swift storming, for it reveals war as a trial of nerve, of reckoning, of endurance, in which time itself became the weapon. Hunger could undo a garrison, though no stone was ever thrown down. A fortress ringed by siege became a small world with a narrowing future. At first, the stores might seem sufficient. Then the shares grew leaner. Beasts, once kept for saddle or plow, were eyed at last as meat. Against damp and theft and vermin, the grain demanded constant watching. Ale and cheese, dried beans and salted flesh took on a worth they had never carried. The strain was not of the body alone. Want gnawed at temper, order, and faith. Servant and soldier, noble and frightened refugee, did not taste the shortage alike, and bitterness crept along the inner passages. Sickness trailed weakened flesh through crowded rooms. Meanwhile, the host outside might do almost nothing save bar the way to rescue. There lies the cruel logic of starvation, for it turned a place's strength inward against the very people it sheltered. A wall could stand whole while hope quietly fell apart within. Surrender, when it came, was less a clash of defeat than a plain confession that the body knows its limits. The stone was strong, yet hunger was older than any stone. Boiling oil was rarer than the old tales would have it. The image holds firm in memory, but the truth ran soberer. Oil had real value, and great vats of it seldom sat ready to be poured away on defenders. To warm it without mishap during an assault demanded time, fuel, and fitting vessels. Other things came readier because they cost less or lay closer. A garrison might fling down stones, scalding water, sand, quicklime, timber, whatever the hour offered. That the tale endures tells us how castles dwell within the mind, for people keep the most vivid version even when daily war was ruled by supply and plain inconvenience. The men on those walls lived in no legend. They used what served, what lay at hand, what could be mastered under strain. This makes a castle's defense no less dreadful, it makes it truer. The peril rose not from one famous liquid, but from the grim invention of people guarding a narrow door with whatever little they held. Stones and sand and water and quicklime were the more frequent tools. The stuff of defense stayed plain until the moment it dropped from a height. A falling stone could stave in a helm, splinter a shield, sow panic below a gate or wall. Sand, once heated, could find the gaps in armor and bring searing pain. Water might quench a fire, drench an attacker, or scald when set to boil. Quicklime was dreaded most, for scattered abroad it bit at eyes, skin, and breath. These could be had where costly oil so often could not, and they show how far defense leaned on foresight. Stores of ammunition needed gathering and stacking where ready hands could reach it. Vessels, the roots climbing to the parapet, the openings set overhead, each one counted. The defender's edge lay in lifting humble things into power that came from above. Lying upon the earth, a stone is nothing but a stone. Cast down from a parapet, it turns into a weapon carrying the whole weight of its fall. Above a gatehouse passage waited the murder hole, an opening in the vault through which such ruin could rain on any who forced the portcullis below. Again and again, the warfare of castles made the ordinary into the dreadful, and the familiar world shifted meaning where the wall rose overhead. The trebuchet loosed astonishing force by the simple fall of a weight. Such a counterweight engine looks almost graceful until one grasps what it does.
A heavy mass swung from one end of a vast arm, while at its opposite tip, a sling cradled the stone. When the lever was freed, the plunging weight drove the arm aloft and snapped the sling forward, casting the missile in a great arc, hurling stones of remarkable weight against the masonry it meant to break. Its genius lay in turning the Earth's own pull into force that could be summoned again and again. Practiced crews altered the sling's length, the angle of release, the burden of the counterweight, the size of the shot, all to better their reach and aim. The cadence of the work could become a steady and merciless thing. There was a rhythm to the great engine, slow and without mercy. The crew would load it, haul the arm down, loose it, follow the stone as it fell, mend whatever had broken, and start the whole turn again. When a counterweight machine of this sort, the trebuchet, swung its long beam at a wall, the ruin it worked was meant to mount across hours and days rather than arrive in one bright instant. Against the courage of those penned inside, though, every throw counted at once. Those on the ramparts could hear such a weapon being framed across the field, and from the sound alone they grasped what was being readied for them. A thing like this was more than timber and cord. It was a declaration. Raising one asked of a commander seasoned wood, rope, ironwork, men skilled in their trade, and a sheltered stretch of ground on which to put it together. Its mere presence said the besiegers held time, supply, and a settled resolve to remain until the business was done. Before the largest of these engines brought their crushing mass to bear, plainer throwers carried the load. The mangonel cast stones with raw force, taking its power from twisted sinew or from the pull of many arms, according to its build. It threw with less accuracy than the counterweight machines that followed, yet accuracy was not always the thing that counted. Stone upon stone beating against masonry, against roofing, against the wooden screens above the parapet, or down into some crowded yard, could grind away the everyday life of a fortress. The same weapon could be aimed at the men patrolling the wall walks, sending them low into a crouch or off their stations altogether. Those who served it had to act in concert, ready the shot, and guard the frame from flame or from a sudden rush out of the gate. Such machines remind us that a siege was seldom mere patient waiting. It could be a slow, grinding barter of effort for effort. One army raised and flung, the other mended, sheltered, and endured. The mangonel turned plain human labor into violence delivered from a distance, and it made the open ground between camp and keep feel less a margin of safety than the track of a gathering storm. The battering ram needed a roof over it, since the peril fell from above. The idea is plain enough. Bring a heavy beam up to a gate or a wall and pound until something gives. In the doing, the men stood fearfully open to harm. They pressed close against the stone, often right beneath the places the garrison had prepared for that very moment. So the ram was usually set beneath a covered cradle, framed in timber and clad in hides soaked through to turn aside fire. Sheltered thus, the crew could drive the beam with a little cover from what rained down. Even so, the work killed. Those above might drop heavy weights, fire the covering, or sally out to wreck the engine where it stood. Its strength lay in repetition. A single blow settled nothing, but many struck in steady time could split timber, work the iron loose, and wear down the nerve of those within. The sheltered ram shows how near siegecraft carried the attacker to his foe. Where a hurled stone struck from a distance, this engine pressed him hard against the very teeth of the castle. A siege tower might stand taller than the rampart it crept toward. It was, in truth, an attempt to raise a height of one's own and roll it into the fight. These tall wooden frames carried soldiers upward behind walls of plank, so they might cross onto the battlements by a bridge lowered from the top. To serve, the tower wanted fairly level earth and much preparation, lest it sink, catch fire, or fall apart before arriving. So the besiegers had first to fill the ditches, clear whatever blocked the way, and shield the structure as it inched ahead. The garrison, watching it come, would strive to stop it well short of the wall. Fire was the constant danger, and stones and bolts and sudden sorties besides. The dread it laid on those inside must have been vast. A wooden tower grinding nearer turned the whole siege into a deadline on wheels, every yard gained drawing the danger closer. The thought behind it was bold. If the castle owned the gift of height, the attackers would build a rival height and shove it into the quarrel. To bring their engines near, attackers had to fill the ditches. The ground before a fortress was often shaped on purpose to defeat them, so under enemy fire the besiegers were forced to reshape that earth themselves. Trenches, pits, broken slopes, and swept killing grounds kept the heavy gear from any place of use. To overcome this, the men cast in soil, wood, brushwood, rubble, and bound bundles until a rough road took form. The toil was wearing and deadly. Laborers crept forward while watchers stared down from above. Shields, wicker screens, and roofed approaches gave some cover, never enough. Each basket of earth carried the engines a fraction nearer. Each stretch made solid stripped away a little of the castle's advantage. This drudgery seldom finds a place in the gallant tales, yet it sat at the heart of real sieges. Before any grand machine could strike, common folk had to haul, dig, and carry. War upon castles leaned on toil as much as on daring. A ditch was never beaten by a single brave flourish, but by load after load of fill brought up under threat. The art of these engines spread far beyond Europe. In the Holy Land, the Crusaders held Crac de Chevalier, which endures today as one of the greatest surviving Crusader castles, its walls raised to weather exactly the patient assault these weapons promised. Such places make plain why so much labor went into the throwing and the battering and the slow filling of ditches. Against stones so thick and so cunningly set, no single blow would do. Only time, supply, and the steady will to keep loading and releasing and repairing could hope to bring a great wall down, and even then the end was never sure. Few strongholds ever bristled with troops, and that hushed truth renders them the more absorbing, not the less. A great many stood mainly as seats of governance, as granaries, as dwellings, or as the bare token of who held command, watched over by no greater force than the upholding of order asked. Rule of this kind never rested on unbroken pageantry. Even thinly manned, a stronghold could shape how everyone dwelling close behaved, for each among them understood the speed with which it could turn into something far graver. Their fighting companies stood much slighter than later eras are apt to picture. Whole hundreds of soldiers were rarely called for. A trim, shrewdly built castle could be kept by a startlingly modest band, most of all where the purpose was to check a foe, to discourage him, or to grip a district firmly. That tally climbed and sank with the size of a place, its importance, the danger of the moment, and the silver in hand to meet wages. Across quiet seasons, a site might retain merely a handful of watchmen. Once strife stirred, their ranks swelled. And so the picture of these halls as ever-packed barracks falls apart. Much of their might issued from the masonry itself, which magnified the value of each toiling pair of arms. A scant few wakeful guards, posted with judgment, could bolt the gates, raise the warning, walk the ramparts, and throw back a sudden onset. A true siege, of course, asked for far more bodies, to mend, to rotate the watch, to grip several places at once. Still, men came at heavy price, and the wary bookkeeping of the era doled them out frugally. Within that thin company, a castle shows itself as an instrument of economy, allowing a lord to cast his authority over a realm without seating an army in its every quarter. A few faithful men could keep a sturdy castle for many a month. Where the masonry stood firm and the stores ran deep, a small and stubborn band became a forbidding wall. Faithfulness carried great weight, for a siege pressed down with far more than swordcraft. Those holding out had to bear loneliness, dread, weary stretches, want, and the whispered offer of gold. Across the night they noted the besiegers' fires, and read each shift past the walls. Should they have faith in the one commanding them and hold fast to the prospect of relief, they might endure long past the moment their foes reckoned them finished. The masonry let a single man count as many. One gateway, held by scarcely a handful, was enough. Far inside the keep, a cramped, winding stair might be sealed by a lone blade, and such stairs were frequently carved to spiral rightward, so that a right-handed holder descending could strike with ease while the assailant's arm caught against the middle pillar. A tower could oversee a distant approach. Herein lies the reason such sites were so treasured by lords commanding meager forces. They turned scant numbers into lengthy delay. A whole host might be stalled for weeks because a few refused to give way. By this means, a stronghold rendered loyalty a thing the eye could witness. The stone stood fast, yet only because the people stood fast. It was the household staff, more than the men-at-arms, who genuinely kept a stronghold alive. The unremarkable daily turn of the place leaned on labor that hardly shows its face in the heroic tales. They carried water, swept chambers, fed the fires, made the beds, brought food, scrubbed linen, mended clothing, and tended the countless petty tasks that bind a household into one. Remove them, and the proud heap would shortly go cold, foul, hungry, and adrift. What they did joined every wing of the place to all the rest. A meal set out in the hall depended on hands in the kitchen, the pantry, the buttery, the bakehouse, and the courtyard. A guest's room, put right before his arrival, spoke of unseen work already finished. Even the readiness of war demanded service. Weapons needed storing, horses tending, lamps replenishing with oil, and doors, floors, and hearths kept sound. These were social engines, and the staff were the parts that moved. To grasp a stronghold truly, one must hear beyond the clang of steel for the footfalls before daybreak, the raised buckets, the cloth thrashed clean, and the commands carried from chamber to chamber. Smiths, joiners, cooks, and washerwomen were the very tendon of castle existence, since the place amounted to a forge of practiced hands. The smith mended fittings and tools, shoes, chains, and the parts of weapons. The joiner kept whole the furniture, the scaffolds and shutters, the carts, the roofs, and the doors. The cook commanded heat and timing, provisions, and the demands of station. The washerwoman grappled with linen, garments, and stains, and the punishing chore of laundering in an age that gave no simple means of it. Each trade upheld the household's visible power in some plain, useful way. A broken hinge could weaken a defense, a dripping roof could spoil the stores, rough fare could sap men's morale, grubby cloth could spawn both disquiet and disease. Such laborers turned a stark mound of stone into a place fit for use. Their skill was earned through repetition and held in the flesh, in the ear that knew a tool's right ring, the nose that caught bread nearing its hour, the fingers that felt cloth wrung clean enough. The record trails behind lords and battles, yet the castle endured through every new day because deft hands kept on mending the little world within. A castle, then, was both a fortress of war and a site of ceaseless toil. To envision it only beneath attack is to overlook nearly the whole of its existence. On ordinary days, it could hum with rounds that brushed against no combat whatever. Officials wrote down dues, balanced accounts, kept papers safe, and managed the estate's business. Craftsmen patched the fabric, staff cooked, guards held the doors, messengers arrived and departed, animals wanted feeding, carts trundled in laden with goods. A noble house might receive callers, hear petitions, settle a marriage, or scheme a journey, the whole of it taking place inside walls still cut for defense. That very blending is what gives such places their hold on the mind. A wall raised to hurl back foes likewise penned in baking and bargaining, prayer and discipline, gossip and weariness. The selfsame yard might carry armed men in a crisis and hens on a still morning. These were no frozen monuments holding their breath for battle, but laboring hubs where governance, domestic life, and security all ran together. Their power rested in showing themselves useful day after day, not merely dreadful in the perilous hour. Horses called for stables, fodder, farriers, and unbroken daily care. In the life of the medieval great, they were no baubles, but conveyance, status, the equipment of war, and a costly stake besides. Keeping them in health was tireless work. Stables cleaned out, hooves trimmed and shod, harness and saddle and rein repaired, fodder collected, measured, and guarded from the damp. The grooms held a vigilant eye for lameness, for sores, for a fading appetite, the marks of a spent beast. A splendid warhorse meant years of training, breeding, and considerable expense, while plainer riding mounts and pack beasts kept the household in motion. Any castle alive with riders needed space and order to carry all of this. Throughout the day moved the scent of horses and their din, hooves striking stone, breath fogging in the cold, leather pulled taut, hay turned over in the dark. Lacking them, news crept, the hunt altered. Every journey grew steeper, and the readiness of war faltered. The stable was no useless nook, but one of the engines of a lord's power. From the castle as well, falconry might be taken up as a display befitting the high-born. To launch a falcon or hawk skyward was to announce one's refinement, riches, and discipline. Birds of prey demanded skilled hands, attentive feeding, odd equipment, and patience, all of which made the craft a suitable amusement for the well-bred. Sport it was, and yet performance too. A lord who rode out carrying a trained bird revealed a mastery over nature that arrested every watcher. The birds carried rank within themselves, for assorted species suited assorted standings and styles of the chase. The split second of release must have stirred the blood, as a motionless form upon the glove broke into abrupt speed and rose with deadly aim. Falconry married patience to spectacle, suiting the castle world because it rendered discipline beautiful and made idle leisure into an emblem of standing. That trained bird was more than a hunter. It ranked as a living mark of noble command. The hunting parks circling a castle proclaimed wealth as plainly as any wall could. A private chase stood as a powerful sign that the land itself might be hedged for the few. To possess one demanded legal right, marked bounds, keepers, beasts, and a watch against poaching. Deer were valued beyond the rest, furnishing sport, meat, and standing all in one. For the noble house, the park drew the castle's meaning outward across the countryside, declaring that rule did not cease at the gate, that a lord might hold back whole landscapes for chosen use. Guests might be summoned to ride and hunt, and such summoning knit bonds of favor. The chase carried thrill, and yet it likewise stiffened the order of rank, for who rode where, who claimed the choicest quarry, and who in the end ate the venison all carried weight among the local folk. A park could awe and embitter at the same time, since the hedged ground barred people from what they might once have relied upon. A hunting park, then, was forever far more than mere recreation. Rank, in the end, pressed even into the soil. The plots beside a stronghold were seldom set out for display. They earned their place. Herbs climbed in tidy rows because a household relied on them right through every season. Some lent flavor to plain fare in an age when taste depended on whatever might be dried, salted, or gathered from the ground close by. Others crossed into the still room as salves, washes, and sweet-smelling blends. A stem of rosemary, a sprig of sage or rue, of mint, of lavender, might answer to both chapel and cookpot in a single breath. Such gardens granted form as well to a site framed mostly of hard edges, where clipped hedges, slim paths, raised beds, and low walls cut a measure of living quiet from the fortress hemming them in. In this house and that, the grounds were kept for unhurried walking, for talk, for a still moment of thought. Their loveliness leaned upon their use. A single plant might please the nose, soothe an ache, season a dish, and whisper of gentility all at once. Behind the towering defenses, these tended corners disclose a gentler learning, raised from care, from memory, and from the plain demands of one day after the next. Many strongholds held ponds full of fish, a larder for the days when meat lay forbidden. The Christian calendar ruled the table tightly, and on a fast day fish bore real weight. A castle owning its own pools kept that supply close to hand. These ran as tended waters, never lucky accidents of the landscape. Carp and pike, eel, or whatever a given region offered might stock them, and their upkeep called for steady labor. The water flow managed, the stock replenished, the harvest timed, the lot guarded from thieves. The outcome was a pantry that swam. When devotion pared back what could be laid on the board, the household still managed a meal fitting its standing, a thing that weighed as heavily for welcome as for hunger, since a noble house owed its guests an honorable table, even when shifting rules redrew what the kitchen could put forward. Ponds of this kind disclose, as well, how far a castle stretched across the land around it. Food never merely turned up at the hearth, it came arranged through fields and stores, through herds, through channels and silent pools. One dish might trace its origin to a pool tended with care for months before it ever met the board.
The well-worn picture of cold gray stone leads us astray, since plenty of castles in their living years carried color plainly. The stripped, weathered shells that endure are not the thing that stood before the medieval eye. Walls came often lime-washed, plastered, or painted through, and the chambers inside could glow with pigment, with pattern, with heraldic show. Beams and doorways, ceilings and shields, the painted woodwork of a chapel, each once bore hues that the years have dulled or scoured off. Color told of wealth and of name. A painted face warmed a room, crisped its lines, and struck those who came in. Beyond the walls, lime wash at once guarded the stone and lent a fortress a bold look against the country circling it. We commonly come to the castle only after long centuries of rain and ruin and fond neglect. Yet, whoever beheld it in the Middle Ages may have found something far brighter, a deliberate and living spectacle in place of a grim relic of stone and shade. Banners served as a kind of language stitched in cloth. Heraldry gave families their names, fixed their alliances, and urged their military claims. And where so few could read, such marks carried tremendous force. A device made a name into color and shape. A standard flying over a tower, a shield fixed in the hall, a painted mark beside the gate, each told the onlooker who gripped this ground, who stood at his side, and what right he meant to press. These patterns ran as no idle ornament. They followed known rules, so a line could be read across a battlefield, across a seal, a charter, a wall. Inside the walls, heraldry braced memory, calling up marriages and inherited rights, old triumphs and sworn loyalties. Amid the crush of war, when armor and distance veiled every face, it could part friend from foe. A stronghold draped with such marks turned into a standing claim upon legitimacy. This ground, it announced, falls to this house, beneath this protection, with this history behind it. The cloth might toss on the wind, yet the message was fashioned to seem fixed for good. Painted decoration once reached far past the fragments we now turn up. It tempts us to imagine bare walls, and yet a great many medieval interiors carried scenes, motifs, and lavish color. Painting of this sort framed windows, aped costly hangings, set out sacred images, or showed off a family's badge. The bulk of it sat upon plaster, and so fell easily to damp and to fire, to rebuilding and decay. Centuries afterward, only scraps remain, buried under later coats or folded into sheltered angles, and such scraps count as treasures, for they reveal how utterly a room could shift. A chamber bare today may once have teemed with meaning. A wall pale today may have held saints and vines, shields and stars,
or some clean geometric figure. Paint molded mood and standing, rendering a space holier, nobler, or more theatrical. The loss cuts deep, but the scant survivals speak loudly. They remind us that castles were not simply raised. They were felt by way of color and symbol and crafted surfaces that the years have all but scrubbed away. A tower scrubbed white could trap the sun and gleam across vast distances, and that long reach of sight made up no small slice of its purpose. Lime wash, drawn from lime, sealed and shielded the stone while wholly changing how a building read. A fortress lit with it might rise against hill and wood and rooftop with abrupt, startling sharpness. It did not just settle upon the land but declared itself. Where authority rested on being seen, this mattered greatly. A traveler upon the road might catch the castle long before he gained its gate. A laborer among the fields might raise his eyes and remember the power housed above him. The benefit was practical as much as proud, for the lime aided the masonry below it in lasting. Even so, it is the visual force that lingers in the mind. The castles we know come often dimmed by age, yet some who dwelt among them may have watched them blazing near a fire against the open sky. Life inside those walls came colder, darker, and louder than any fable permits. Thick stone hoarded the chill, keenest in wet weather, and slim windows starved most rooms of light. Candle and lamp, hearth fire and the thin daylight through a slit had to carry the work a modern switch now conceals. Sound traveled strangely through courtyards and stairs, through halls and service rooms. Hooves rang upon stone, doors groaned, servants shouted, dogs gave tongue, metal clanged out of the workshops, and the wind nosed out every gap around a shutter. Privacy ran scarce, and comfort bowed to rank, to season, and to how near one sat to a fire. Even the loftiest chamber made do with a garderobe, nothing more than a latrine carved into the thickness of a wall. The great could ease their quarters with hangings, roaring hearths, and finer furnishing, yet the fabric of the place itself stayed harsh. A wall raised thick enough to halt an army did as much to warmth and to quiet. None of this dims the wonder of these places. It only renders them more human. The poetry of a tower glimpsed from afar is one thing. To wake within it on a streaming winter morning was something else again. Medieval people lived amid such grandeur with cold hands, smoke-steeped clothing, and an unending din at their backs. About the greatest castles, the clamor of building could carry on for decades. A large stronghold was seldom thrown up in one neat stroke. Work drove on across reigns and shifting fortunes, through wars and reworked designs, the site ringing with chisel and hammer, with carts and pulleys, shouted orders, and beasts hauling their loads year after year. One generation might set down a wall the next would finish. A lord might raise a tower to cloud his rivals. A later master might fortify a gate, throw up a fresh hall, or repair the damage of recent fighting. The whole thing grew across time rather than rising up complete. Those who lived close by may have known the castle as a project with no end. Its dust and scaffolding, its rough workshops and piled stone easing into the everyday face of the land. This slow unfolding helps explain why so many castles fit oddly together in their parts, separate stretches answering separate ambitions. A fortress can carry the marks of changing taste, of fresh dread and old trouble together. Its building is no mere footnote. It is the very story, set plainly into every course of stone. Long before, the earliest of these sites had stood humbler yet, a timber tower set on a heaped mound of earth beside its fenced yard, the motte and bailey out of which the high stone walls would, in their season, come down. Among all who raised the great walls of that age, the master masons stood apart. The men who drew the plans and oversaw the cutting of stone held a knowledge both useful and uncommon. To lead such work, one had to grasp geometry and the nature of his materials, the laying of foundations, the lifting of weight, the turning of a vault, the draining of water, and the way stone answers when a burden presses upon it. He had also to command his crews and untangle whatever troubles arose on a living site. None of this learning was bound to a single spot. The skilled passed from one undertaking to the next, bearing their notions across lands where kings, bishops, and lords vied through whatever they raised.
The shape of a tower, the manner of a window, some trick of building might spread because a trained hand had watched it hold true far away. Through such traveling of craft, fortresses became threads in a wider web of skill. Never solitary inventions sprung from nothing, but things rooted in currents of toil, apprenticeship, and hard-won experience. The name of a mason was seldom sung as loudly as that of the Lord who emptied his coffers. Yet without the builder's judgment, grand intention could split and tumble. Behind each wall that endured stood a mind that knew how to coax stone into bearing what was asked. Most of the hands at work were drawn from the country round about and paid for their labor. The raising of a stronghold pulled the nearby villages into its orbit. A few were specialists, though the greater number came from the surrounding fields. They broke stone in the quarry, dug the ditches, fetched water, fired the lime kilns, dragged timber, dressed materials, drove the carts, and brought in the food. Those with more skill might draw wages for carpentry, for aiding the masons, for roofing or shaping metal. So a castle was never merely set down upon the land from above. Within that very land it became a kind of event in the local economy. People might chafe at the forced demands, yet such wages brought coin and a chance otherwise unlikely. Markets tended to sprout near the works, since laborers wanted bread and ale, tools, and a roof. The whole rhythm of the days was overturned, as fields and roads and quarries found themselves bound now to the wall rising among them. Such labor vanishes from sight the moment the building stands finished. The traveler sees towers. The medieval country saw the sweat behind them. Every block, hoisted into its bed, held human weariness, bargaining, and craft. No single lordly wish conjured a castle. Many hands raised it. Builders of that age were practical scavengers, and certain fortresses rose partly from Roman stone gathered out of older ruins. Where the walls of a vanished fort, the bones of an abandoned town, or some toppled monument lay within reach, that stone became a tempting store. Blocks already shaped held real worth, since to quarry and dress fresh material cost both time and silver. The reuse could carry meaning beyond mere thrift. To build with ancient stone was to tie a new lord, whether by design or simply through the weight of the thing, to the standing of an empire long gone. A Roman block bedded into a medieval wall might have looked upon centuries before being lifted a second time. This lends certain castles a layered character, their stones older than the shapes they were fitted into. One who studies such a wall may be gazing upon fragments of two worlds joined in a single course. Need, remembrance, conquest, and the long thread of continuity all converge in borrowed masonry. The outcome is quietly astonishing.
Medieval power now and then assembled itself out of imperial remnants, taking the bones of one age to set them into the designs of another. A castle was never a settled idea, since its form shifted as swiftly as the weapons and stratagems ranged against it. When besiegers grew cleverer at undermining, builders reconsidered the shape of their towers and the depth of their footings. Round towers were favored partly because they offered such diggers less purchase than square corners. As missile arms improved, the loops and the wall walks were altered to suit them. When siege engines swelled, the walls and their layers of defense had to answer. The trebuchet, that great counterweighted machine able to hurl a heavy stone across a wide gap, was among the threats driving walls thicker and ditches wider. For a curtain that could shrug off such a blow demanded mass that earlier ages had not thought to give. Experience told as well. A defense that failed could school those who came after, its lessons passing among builders, soldiers, and rulers alike. From all of this came an arms race running across the centuries. Designs once judged unassailable could fall out of date the very moment fresh tactics appeared. Some strongholds were reworked again and again, gaining towers, stouter gateways, deeper trenches, or refashioned living quarters. Others ended as ungainly blends of old conviction and new. This ceaseless adjusting is one reason castles repay close study, since they are ledgers of problems solved under duress. Every feature poses a question about peril. Every alteration whispers that someone, somewhere, had learned a bitter lesson. The castle is less a building than a long exchange between fear and ingenuity. In time, gunpowder rendered the tall medieval wall perilously out of date. Able cannon did not strip castles of their worth in a single night, yet they overturned the old rules. Walls high and upright had been raised to throw back ladders, blunt arrows, and defeat older methods of assault. Against artillery, that very height could turn into a flaw. A lofty wall offered a plain mark, and sustained fire could fracture masonry in ways that earlier arms had struggled to reach. So defenders came to need forms that were lower, thicker, and more steeply angled, able to soak up a blow or turn it aside. The change came slowly since cannon grew in cost and reach unevenly from one place to another. Some older castles were fitted with gun ports, banked with earthworks, or strengthened in parts. Others simply dwindled as serious defenses. The shift strikes deep, since it marks a turn in the very meaning of strength. For ages, castles had climbed skyward to overawe. Now gunpowder bent fortification outward and downward instead. The age of the soaring wall did not end in an instant. By slow degrees it learned that grandeur had grown dangerous. Once artillery counted as a true menace, the early cannon turned the craft of the builder towards squat and heavy defenses. Stone alone no longer always sufficed, since heavy shots striking again and again could break it, while packed earth absorbed such impact better. So later works often married masonry to banks, platforms, and broader footings. Walls sank lower to shrink the target. Corners and projections were recast so that defenders might mount their own guns and rake the approaches with fire. The proud old skyline of high curtains and lofty towers gave way to a strength that hugged the ground. This was no dulling of wit, but an answer matched to the threat. For the building of fortresses has always obeyed the physics of whatever weapon was aimed at it. Such early gunworks may strike the eye as less stirring, yet they were drawn out of hard knowledge. The roar of cannon had remade the meaning of safety. A fortress now had to endure shock, the shudder of impact, and ruin concentrated from a distance. In reply, the architecture grew weightier, flatter, more exacting in its measure. Power had settled nearer the earth. When their fighting days were done, a number of castles softened into comfortable palaces. A stronghold no longer wanted at the front of war could be eased by its owners. Drafty chambers might be bettered, broader windows cut where defense no longer ruled. Gardens, ornamented rooms, private apartments, and halls for ceremony might take precedence over stern military use.
Such a change did not strip the old place of its standing. If anything, the ancient walls lent the dwellers a greater air, since they bore the memory of ancestral might. A palace set within a former fortress let a family taste ease while still inhabiting a sign of authority. The shift mirrored wider turns in the affairs of the age, as centralized states, new weapons, and altered noble ways all bore upon the manner in which the homes of the great were lived in. Some castles became showpieces rather than necessities of war. Others kept their mingled roles a long while yet. This is no tale of plain decline, but one of remaking. Stone raised for danger found fresh life as a stage for status. Many a ruined castle endured for the plain reason that its stones were too hard to carry off. Abandoned buildings were commonly worked like convenient quarries,
their dressed stone, if it could be hauled away with ease, finding its way into houses, barns, field walls, churches, and roads. Yet certain ruins outlasted the scavengers because pulling them down cost more trouble than the stone returned. Vast walls, awkward heights, stubborn mortar, difficult footing, and sheer weight all argued against the labor of total removal. A tower might stand on, not because anyone meant to keep it for the sake of memory, but because dismantling it would have demanded more sweat than the stone was worth. This accidental survival shaped the lands we have inherited. The romantic ruin may owe its very being to mere inconvenience. With the passing of the years, ivy and weather, local tales and shifting taste turned these remnants into treasured monuments. But their first endurance was stubbornly a matter of stone, holding on not through any strength of arms, but through the price of the work to break it. The ruin lasted because human effort has its limits, and so the same solidity that once thwarted attackers came later to thwart the plunderers, letting fragments of medieval life remain upright. When a castle lost its purpose, the people nearby sometimes saw in it not history at all, but only good and usable stone. When a fortress fell from use, it seldom disappeared in a single stroke. It came apart slowly, one useful piece after another. Dressed stone, seasoned beams, sheets of lead, roof tiles, iron hinges and bolts, even the carved ornament set above a door, all of it held worth for the people living close by. A crumbling stronghold turned, in effect, into a quarry stocked with finished goods. Somewhere a farmer or a mason might gather whatever he needed for a fresh cottage, a barn, a low field wall, or some modest project of his own. To brand this as destruction in the way we now might would be unfair. To villages owning little and able to afford less, it was simply the sensible course. Once the castle had pulled men and material into itself, swallowing the labor of a whole district. In its decline, it gave those things back, scattering them over the countryside. So it happens that scraps of long-vanished fortresses can still endure inside everyday structures, tucked unnoticed into a farmhouse gable or the footings of a shed. This slow taking reshaped the ruins as well. Gateways were hauled off whole, towers were stripped to their cores, and great halls thinned into faint lines on the grass. What lingers now may be only the part that resisted removal, too awkward, too sacred, or too solidly built to pull down with ease. Something quietly remarkable lives in this second existence, for it shows medieval stonework still answering human need long after its old strength had drained away. Within those thick walls, the smaller comforts faded too. A guardrobe, the plain latrine cut into the depth of the masonry, once let waste drop clear of the rooms above, and even fittings so humble tell us how people truly lived behind the battlements. Long afterward, painters and writers came to view these broken places with fresh eyes. Centuries had passed since most castles meant anything to an army, yet the romantic imagination discovered in their decay a meaning of another kind. Shattered turrets, hollow windows, and stones smothered in ivy came to signify mystery, memory, a splendor now gone. Canvases set fortresses beneath stormy skies. Novels and verses filled their chambers with hidden sorrow, with longing, with a chivalry half invented. This new sensibility altered what ordinary people found lovely. No longer need a ruin count as a wounded building. Its very brokenness could become its charm. Through feeling as much as through any record, the medieval age was recast. The effects were real, for this mood shaped the later mending of castles, the way they pulled in visitors, and how new buildings rose in imitation of the old. That familiar picture of a lone keep crowning a hill owes much of its force to this later dreaming. Stir the heart it can, yet it can also conceal the harder truths of power, of toil, of bitter politics. The Romantics raised not a single wall, but more than nearly anyone, they shaped how those who followed would learn to imagine such places. A great many famous castles were heavily reworked across the 19th century. Certain strongholds that strike the eye as flawlessly medieval owe much of that look to far later hands. During the 1800s, architects, scholars of antiquity, landowners, even governments set out to mend or remake castles to fit their own notions of the Middle Ages. Sometimes they conserved with great care. Sometimes they amended, completed, or simply invented whatever they supposed the past should have been. Lost towers could rise again. Rooms could be dressed once more with furniture. Defenses could be propped up or reshaped for the comfort of visitors. Such work rescued countless sites from sliding deeper into ruin, yet it clouds what stands before us. A single chamber may hold true medieval fabric, later fancy, and modern preservation all knotted together. The outcome can be lovely and richly layered in time, though seldom simple to read. These restorations tell us nearly as much about the 19th century as about the centuries they meant to honor, exposing an era enthralled by lineage, by nation, by romance, by fine handwork. To pass through a restored castle is, in a sense, to cross two separate dreams of the past at once. Castle ruins often guard more history below ground than they show above it. What endures in open daylight is merely a portion of the tale. Beneath turf, scattered rubble, courtyards, and toppled walling, there may rest foundations, drains, the marks of vanished posts, old floors, hearths, work areas, refuse pits, and objects long buried. Excavation can summon back buildings that no longer stand, the routes people once walked, and the corners where daily labor was done. A gentle swelling in the ground might betray a fallen tower. A row of half-sunk stones might trace a service wing. Beds of ash, bone, broken pottery, and corroded metal can speak more fully than any wall still upright. This concealed evidence matters because ruins so often mislead by what they keep. The proud parts may endure, while the humble rooms melt away. The buried record helps restore that lost balance, pointing us toward the spots where folk cooked, mended their gear, penned their beasts, threw out waste, and crossed from one task to the next. Never is a ruin truly empty. It forms a sealed archive, and much of its remembering may yet lie waiting beneath the soil. Those who dig read the wider land of a castle through its ditches, its footings, its forgotten ways. A stronghold comes to far more than the stone still standing. The ground around it can keep clues that the careless eye slides past. A faint hollow may be the ghost of an old ditch. A low ridge may mark a boundary. A worn trace might reveal the way carts once neared a back entrance. Foundations can disclose buildings pulled down ages ago, while a shift in the color of the earth can show where water once pooled or where wooden structures stood. Investigators study these signs to piece together how people moved and why, asking where the gates let them in, where they labored, which spaces were watched, and how the whole site bound itself to fields, roads, hamlets, and streams. Such reading turns plain ground into a written page. The most striking tower may tell us less than a barely visible swell of turf. Forgotten paths hold a peculiar power, since they preserve behavior itself, recording the places where feet, wheels, and animals passed again and again. In that way, a castle's landscape can still hold the habits of people whose very names are lost. Traces of charcoal can reveal the spots where the kitchens once roared with heat. Fire leaves its proof long after the flames die. Within the layers of an excavation, charcoal, ash, scorched clay, and earth reddened by heat can mark the places of cooking, of baking, of the hot work of craft. A kitchen may have crumbled to nothing above ground, yet its warmth stays written into the soil. Charcoal fragments can even point toward the kinds of timber burned, hinting at how nearby woodland was tended and supplied. Clusters of burnt matter may show the places where hearths blazed, where ovens worked, or where the sweepings of old fires were tipped away. So these small black specks turn into witnesses of history, telling of toil, of meals, of smoke, of the unending duty of feeding a household. A splendid hall may command more notice, but the kitchen fire is what kept alive the people who crowded it. Charcoal is lowly evidence, yet it carries us near to lived experience, the leavings of warmth, of hunger, of skill and habit, enduring in the dark once every voice has gone. The bones of animals can show what households ate on their unremarkable days. Discarded scraps can prove astonishingly eloquent. Bones cast aside after a meal reveal which creatures were eaten, the way they were cut apart, and at times, who was granted the finer portions. Cattle, sheep, pigs, deer, fowl, and fish each leave their own signatures. Knife scars betray the butcher at work. Patterns of charring suggest the way the meat was cooked. The age at which beasts were slaughtered can hint at farming choices and the rank of the table. A lordly house might dine on venison or choice cuts more freely than poorer folk close by, while servants and laborers made do with plainer fare. Fish remains can echo the fasts of religion or trade reaching far, when a species arrived from distant seas. Such relics temper the grandeur of castle legend, laying bare the menu behind the pageantry and reminding us that power, too, kept its diet. Every banquet ended at last as refuse, and each heap of refuse turned into an archive. Through bones, the excavator can rebuild not merely the food eaten, but how station, season, faith, and supply arranged the board. Shards of pottery can disclose links of trade across distances that surprise us. A single broken fragment may look like nothing, yet a map can lie within it. Pottery carries telling differences of clay, of glaze, of form, of firing, by which its place of making can be known. When pieces from far-off regions surface at a castle, they prove that goods, tastes, and ties ran wider than one might suppose. Imported jugs, fine ware for the table, vessels for storage, or pots for the fire can speak of riches and of contact abroad. Even the plainest ceramics serve to date the layers and rebuild the rhythms of daily life. No household stood apart from the world. It used objects shaped by markets, by roads, by rivers, by harbors, by hands beyond its walls. Pottery shatters readily, which is the reason it survives in such plenty. A vessel smashed and thrown out after use can outlast the parchment that left no trace. Each sliver stands as a small testament to movement, having once held wine, oil, grain, or only water. In its baked clay, the castle's wider world quietly endures. Written records sometimes set down the very names of those who raised these great strongholds. Medieval documents can now and then lift a single laborer clear of the faceless crowd. Account rolls, lists of wages, contracts, and notes of administration may name the masons, the carpenters, the smiths, the carters, the diggers, and the men who oversaw them. Such papers can reveal the pay, the materials, the order of the work, and the vast organization any building demanded. It is worth recalling, too, that the age which raised these walls eventually unmade their purpose. As gunpowder artillery grew in force, the tall, proud walls that had stood for centuries became targets rather than shelter, and in time, the high castle yielded to the low, star-shaped fort built to swallow a cannonball rather than rise above it. What seemed at first the lone ambition of a king or a lord turns, in the surviving accounts and ledgers, into something wider, an undertaking divided among many hands. The names kept within those records carry weight because they hand the work back its presence. Where there might have been only nameless effort, the documents let individuals surface. Men who dressed stone, carried beams, fired lime in their kilns, and handled whatever small trouble a day on site could raise. A few, it appears, lingered only weeks. Others drifted from one great commission to the next, carrying their trade far across the country.
The entries reach us broken and partial more often than not, and still a single line can hold meaning. A laborer, given his day's wage, laid a stretch of wall meant to outlast generations. The fortress recalls such a man only by standing. The ledger recalls him more plainly, in ink that lifts ordinary toil into the record of the past. Many strongholds, it bears noting, never met an attack, for all that they stood ready. No siege was needed before a castle could answer its purpose. Its outline alone might, at times, steer war away. A heavy ring of walls, a watched gate, and the plain sight of armed men on duty could turn a rival toward an easier mark, or draw a quarrel to the table rather than the field. This deserves a pause, since the surviving stories gather around ground where blood was truly shed. Prevention leaves a thinner trace. A castle could spend its whole working life shaping how others behaved without ever facing the proof of battle. It kept taxes moving, sheltered the granaries, housed a region's officials, and stood as a quiet sign that authority kept watch. Calm in the surrounding country did not mark the place as useless. It may have been the surest token that the thing was succeeding. Readiness owns a history of its own. The arrow never loosed, the siege never opened, the revolt never dared. Each belongs to the tale. Victory might come to a stronghold simply by rendering any assault foolish before a single ladder ever reached its walls. Other fortresses, by contrast, passed between masters time and again and were never quite broken. A castle might move through a long line of lords and stand whole through every one. Capture was not always ruin. A new holder usually wanted the place sound, since its worth rested in being used, and to wreck it would spoil the prize. So these buildings stacked layer on layer of dwelling, of mending, of change, of memory. A latrine sunk into a wall's thickness, the guardrobe, might serve one family and later their fiercest enemies. A tower torn open in one war could be knit together again by the regime that followed. A chapel might keep the prayers of worshippers who would never have claimed one another as friends. Lordship could turn on a siege, on a death and the inheritance it brought, on a marriage, a treaty, a royal word, or a plain reversal of fortune. The stone held while loyalties around it shifted and shifted again. That persistence ranks among the more haunting things about these places. Many of the very causes men once battled over within them were long gone while the walls endured. A fortress might look on as banners were swapped, as names were swapped, as the laws themselves were rewritten, and stay just as serviceable to anyone who happened to hold the keys. A castle's reach could remake the whole economy beneath it, since its presence touched far more than safety in arms. It generated demand. Workers wanted bread and drink, tools and cloth, timber and candles, leather and wrought iron, and the means to haul it all. Officials wanted clerks. Horses wanted fodder. Visitors came trailing their own followers. A market could rise simply because so large a household consumed on such a scale. Nearby farmers might win steady buyers, though they might as readily fall under dues and obligations. Craftsmen could thrive on orders for repair and supply. Roads might improve, since the castle kept traffic moving, and inns or rough lodging could appear along the busier ways. In some districts, the stronghold pulled a whole settlement into its orbit. The trade that gathered there was not always free, nor always fair, yet it lived. Concentrated wealth and concentrated need drew people to the gate. So a castle could change what the surrounding lands grew, where their goods went to be sold, and to whom the people answered. Its shadow fell not by sunlight alone, but through coin and labor, through law, and through the steady pull of a great household. The medieval castle, then, was never a lonely monument set apart. These were living seats of rule, bound to everything near them by people and duties, by roads and rents, by courts and farms, and the endless coming and going of messages. Such a place could store grain, receive the Lord's officers,
hear petitions, uphold rights, and raise a defense.
The Lord need not always stand within the walls, for the institution carried on through stewards and guards, servants and written rolls. To the communities around it, the castle was no backdrop. It was authority itself. It could guard them in danger and press upon them through its levies, grant them work and demand their obedience. Its weight ran out into the fields and mills, the churches and markets, and the disputes brought to law. For this reason, a castle cannot be read as one tower standing alone upon its hill. It was a part of a larger order. The walls drew a line around space, but the power inside reached well past it. To those who lived under it, the castle was so often the place where a command first turned real, where authority was furnished with a door, with a seal, with a storehouse, and with the armed strength to enforce it. It was the working heart of a whole world. So each broken tower that survives is the relic of a vanished arrangement of lives. Looking at a ruined shaft of stone against the sky, one sees only masonry and open air, yet what has truly gone is far larger than the walls. That tower once held a web of builders and guards, servants and tenants, beasts and stores, papers and oaths, fears and hungers. It fed on the income of land, on skilled repair, on legal right, on fuel and food, and on people who kept it standing, by will or by force. Its chambers carried voices and the rhythms of the day. Its stairs, often coiling clockwise so a right-handed defender backing upward kept room to swing his blade, felt the tread of messengers and laborers, prisoners and guests and watchmen. Its meaning shifted as one generation after another moved through it. The roof may have fallen by now, and birds may build their nests in the very rooms where commands were once issued, and still the ruin holds no emptiness. What remains is the final visible mark of an entire way of arranging human life. Here, perhaps, lies the deepest marvel of these places. Mere buildings they never were. They stood as systems of power shaped to be lived in, and each surviving fragment forms a threshold leading back into the world that once sustained them. And now, the castle goes quiet around us. The watch has been set, the great gate barred, the last torch guttered low in its iron bracket. The lords and masons and weary guards have laid down their cares for the night, and the long siege of the day is over. There is nothing left for you to hold, no wall to keep, no watch to stand. Let the cold stone soften in the dark. Let the old banners settle, and the quarrels of kings fade into the years that swallowed them. Breathe in, slow and deep, and feel the thick walls close gently around this one still moment. Breathe out and sink, fathom by fathom, into the warm dark below all thought. The journey is over now. The fire is low, and the night is kind. Sleep well, and let the quiet of the old stones carry you the rest of the way down.